Welcome everyone to State of the Nation. I am Gimba Umar. So the big fuzz is, did the AGF and indeed the federal government bow to pressure to release the convener of the hashtag Revolution Now protest or not? Remember the back and forth? Omoyele Sowore was released then and then rearrested barely 24 hours later. It was a blow of confusion for many who were watching that political space. Now, we're at the point where the AGF today said that the release of the former NSA, el-Zakzaky and Sowore from detention was due to the federal government having compassion for the duo. So we ask, is the release sentimental or obedience to the rule of law? Can we separate the two? According to the provisions of the Constitution and the Criminal Justice Act of 1999 as amended. Daniel Bwala is a lawyer and rights activist. He joins us from our Abuja studios, as well as Bishop Amakere, chairman of the Young Progressive Party, the YPP, to analyze this. Many thanks indeed, gentlemen, for coming on the show at this time. Let's begin with you, Mr. Bwala. Based on the submission of the AGF, that the two were released from detention due to the federal government having compassion, that's what they say, compassion for the duo. What's the implication of what he has said against the rule of law?
I have actually read, I think, his press statement, and my understanding of what he said contextually is that he said the federal government is committed to demonstrating the respect and adherence to the rule of law and obedience to the order of the court. So I think that the use of the word compassion may not be relevant if you look at what he said contextually. And I like the position that the Honorable Attorney General is taking lately to demonstrate to Nigerians that the Office of the Attorney General is properly positioned to advise the government on what is right and what should be followed. There are a couple of things that as we go on, I will give a suggestion that if the federal government adheres to it, or if the federal government adopts it, it is going to help, particularly the person of the president and the office of the presidency, so that we do not have discordant tune, discordant voices, and we do not have to backtrack when we take informed decisions. So in a nutshell, I believe that obedience to the order of the code is one of the ways you can demonstrate your respect for the rule of law, as in this case.
What's your take on this? Because a lot of people have been commenting on this and saying that there has been some sort of pressure, and as a result, the federal government is bowing to that particular pressure to release these two and not necessarily following up on the rule of law, because there are some other cases that have not been followed through that should have, since these two were considered.
Well, I have actually read whether or not it reached the Office of the Attorney General, I do not know, but I've also read a letter that was jointly written by Chuck Schumer, Cory Booker. These are senators of the U.S. from New Jersey and New York, where Omoyele Sowore resides as a U.S. citizen. And it is natural for them to express that concern. I do not believe that that letter written by the U.S. Congress is a demonstration of the position of the United States government. Otherwise, it would have been a communication between the ambassador of the U.S. and the government of Nigeria. But it is irrelevant, in my view, whether the pressure is coming from America or pressure is coming from England or anywhere else. I have seen government where, without prejudice to what people have said, they stood their ground on the decision they've taken. I think as a country, I decided that I'm looking at it from the perspective that we're taking the right step in the right direction. And that speaks well of the next year that we're going into. So once the order of the code is granted, the law is clear, you are to obey, even if you're appealing or even if you apply for stay. And this is what the federal government has done. I am also aware that regarding other, inmates now, people who are in custody, in various states, like what Attorney General said, if it is within the precedent of the law of a state, then it is the state that will deal with it. So whether you mention el-Zakzaky, it is the government of Kaduna that will have to first take a step on that. Or you look at the case in the Niger Delta where somebody was unlawfully detained as well. But this is a position. So assuming after a period of time, if these states fail to take steps that is necessary, that is why he's the chief law officer of the country. He will do what is necessary in the circumstance to ensure that everybody is equal before the law, and the law applies to the king and applies to the subject, and nobody is above the law. That is the principle that enshrines the tenacity of a democratic society. The minute the law is applied disproportionately, The minute the law can be chosen, you pick and choose, cherry pick which one to obey or which one to do, you are not demonstrating a true society or democratic society. But in this case, the Attorney General has quite frankly impressed me by the bold step he has taken to ensure that these people respectively are released in obedience to the order of the court.
Mr. Makiri, you're a politician. Do you think that the actions that were taken by the AGF and by extension the federal government were selective?
Thank you, Gimba Umar. Truth be told, I must say that even though, yes, it's a good one at the moment, but it's actually belated. And I say this because we don't need to, government ought to know what it should do ab initio when issues like this arise. And you don't allow people, you don't allow yourself to be played into the gallery of the people or what people say here and there. How can we in a government, in a country like where we are today, we call a democratic system. We say we are running a democratic system. You see, it's important to Mr. Gimba Umar. We need to, they say if a man does not know where he's coming from, he will certainly don't know where he's going to. We need to know where the rain began to beat us from. And I'm afraid, actually, if actually we are really practicing democracy, because the separation of power between legislature, judiciary, and the executive, I'm not too comfortable with the system that we have at the moment. And the same Attorney General some time ago, who have said he has no any business in asking the DSS to release Showore and Co. and whatever. The same Attorney General has still come to advise the government to say this is what they should do. Because some people are saying they have bowed to the pressure of this international community. I don't have a problem, where we must open our doors, for international relationship. I don't have a problem. But we must not allow ourselves, honestly, to, descend that too low until when people from outside community come to tell us what we must do in our country. The problem we're having today, Gemba Umar, the truth must be told. If you look at comparatively, the number of years that we returned to democracy since 99 to date, we're talking about 20 years ago. Out of these 20 years, Gemba Umar, we have 8 years now, 412, and this present president is about to finish another 4 years. If you put it all together, 8 plus 8 is 16. So out of these 20 years, you can only say we have true Democrats. That is in the person of Shehu Yaradua, Musa Yaradua, the former of blessed memory, and maybe President Goodluck Jonathan. Even though I would say President Goodluck Jonathan kind of allowed some sycophants around him to mislead him. But we will say that is the only time we had two Democrats. We are still suffering
again,
from...
Maybe I should just refresh that to you again, Mr. Makiri. Do these actions speak to the rule of law as stipulated or to the Criminal Justice Act of 1999 as amended? Do they represent what the actions of the government have taken?
Like I said, Gimba Umar, it's long. Look, let me tell you, they have violated the rule of law. Truth be told, there's nothing, there's no pretense about this. Even during the military regime, when they introduced to us what I would call suspension and modification decree, we didn't go through this kind of, violation of rule of law. And even at that time, that's what we call what do you call it? African Chartered Human Rights, what do you call it?
African Charter on Human Rights.
Yes, African Chartered Human Rights for people's rights. Sorry, African Chartered for Human and People's Rights. You can still go and get your rights. Even at that time, the military were not brutalizing people this way. And it's quite unfortunate that Nigerians are sitting to watch that at this time that we call for democracy to reign, we are experiencing this kind of quagmire. I think it is a danger that is looming. to our democracy.
Let me get the thoughts of the lawyer just by your side. Now, you've just heard his submissions, and he feels that actually the present administration has not actually fared well. In your opening statement, you said that it's a welcome development that will give more confidence in the system. Do you think that that confidence is being felt, drawing from the kind of feedbacks that we're getting today?
Yes, the confidence is building, and every government in every society improves day by day, because democracy itself is a concept propounded by man, and it is not without error. If you go to America now and you hear CNN and some of these other television networks, you will think as if America is going to collapse the next morning. There will always be opinion. If the government does not take a step, they will say the government disobeys court order. When the government takes a step, they will say it is late. There is nothing you can do to satisfy a man whose mind is made up about his opinion concerning the government. But to be honest with you, even take it, without admitting, without considering that it was a pressure from international body. The ability of the government to succumb to pressure when the government deemed that it is right, pressure without consequence, shows that the government is adapting to change. Because in our little life, we have seen government where advice was given to them by foreign government and they refused to follow. The most important thing, and I like the way you put it in your question, does that speak to the rule of law and the Administration of Criminal Justice Act? In other words, whether it is lawful or not, opinion is immaterial. And I like that question. And the answer is simple. It is strictly obeying, entrenching, and promoting the Administration of Criminal Justice Act and respecting the rule of law. The rule of law does not make a country perfect overnight. But let me tell you, to be very honest with you, this is my candid opinion to the government, particularly in relation to matters of law, legal development, and constitutionality. I believe that the president needs to have advisor on legal and constitutional matters, and also he needs to have counsel to the villa, in other words, State House counsel, whose duty will be to advise the government on the legal implication of every official act of the government emanating from the presidency. There is a difference between the Office of Attorney General, which is the chief law officer of the country, and the president's counselor, as well as the State House counsel. Now,
don't you believe that some will argue that that is duplication of the roles of that should be carried out by the AGF? That should be absolutely a duplication of the roles, some people might argue. Okay, we'll go on a short break. We'll go on a very short break. In addition to that question, that view that some people may be asking, Mr. Daniel Bwala, the lawyer, what then can be said of the leader of the proscribed IMN, Sheikh Ibrahim el-Zakzaky? The AGF Malami, do remember, said that a case has been handled by the Kaduna State government. One wonders if jurisdiction comes into play in this. We'll have that when we return. Let me come back to you very quickly, Mr. Daniel Bwala. What then can be said of a leader of the proscribed IMN, Sheikh Ibrahim el-Zakzaky? The AGF, Malami, said that it was a case handled by the Kaduna State government, right? Now, one wonders if jurisdiction comes into play here. For instance, if the House of Representatives can take over the functions of a State House of Assembly in terms of crisis, or when there is crisis brewing in the state, do you remember the case of Kogi and also Edo State, those scenarios? In that light, the AGF can also take over the el-Zakzaky case. Will one be correct to assume as such?
Oh, no, not really. They are not the same and they do not apply. In the case of the National Assembly taking over the House of Assembly of a state, they can only do so because it is provided for expressly in the Constitution. And so they are obeying constitutionality when they take that step. But when it comes to criminal justice system, we have the state, we have the federal. That's why you have federal courts, you have the state court. You have state crimes, you have federal crimes. You have jurisdiction that the federal government can intervene even in a state, and you have that which the federal government cannot, the state will have to handle, and there is one that they can both share. In this case of el-Zakzaky, since it is the Attorney General of Kaduna State that charged him to court, it will be unethical, in my view, for the Attorney General of the Federation to simply take over the matter, unless and until the Attorney General of that state, for example, submits such to the Office of the Attorney General, or that the law expressly provides that regarding this crime or this particular crime, the federal government or the federal Attorney General can take over the matter or discontinue the matter or institute the action. So that which is charged by a state under the state law is to be prosecuted by the state Attorney General. That which is charged by the state under a federal law, the Attorney General can take over the matter.
Now, let me digress a little and look at some other areas. Mr. Makire, what should happen to other perceived political detainees, since the government seems to be taking a U-turn on what many believe to be very hard stance on issues of treason? What should the government be doing now? Daniel has just talked about the el-Zakzaky situation, and it's cleared the air. You do remember that his senior colleague, Femi Falana, did call for the release of el-Zakzaky, saying that if Sowore and indeed Mr. Dasuki should be released, then the same rules should also apply. What do you think?
You see, Gimba Umar, for us to actually enjoy absolute adherence to rule of law, we must honestly give total commitment to that system that has to do with the beauty of rule of law, which is allowing the independency of judiciary, legislature, and the executive. We all know that those are the three arms of government. Okay? What we want to see in this country is judicial prosecution and not political persecution. What we are seeing today in this government of the day is more of political persecution. And it's not doing well to this country. Okay? No government can achieve any success with this kind of style of leadership. You see, in leadership, there are two styles every leader will choose to adopt, if he chooses to adopt. There is this authoritarian style of leadership, and there is a democratic style of leadership. The democratic one is the one you allow the rule of law to thrive. And if you choose to go the authoritarian way, that is where you don't mind even the sanctity of the judiciary or even because we have, whether we like it or not, there is, in this democratic reign, we cannot say no to the establishment of the three arms of government. And I think going forward, that the government know better what she must do to put Nigeria on the right track. And I will advise that let the government also understand that the world is watching. How can we be answering the giant of Africa, and every time, look, African countries are looking forward to see what Nigerian is doing. If anything happens to Nigeria, I tell you that the rest of the African countries will also, pay the supreme price. And God forbid, we will not see that our country go the way some people will want it to go. No, because this country belongs to all of us. We will continue to stand firm and, check the government. And in fact, sorry, Gimo, if you allow me, I think going forward, honestly speaking, my advice is that we should change even the style of how we, in terms of leadership recruitment. Like, for example, any political party that forms or produce a president, let that political party, the political party should not be allowed to bring also the leadership of the National Assembly. And in terms of the Senate of the President.
But you also know that in as much as you want the system to be sanitized, that has to go through constitutional amendments. Very, very key and instructive as well. But Mr. Boala, going forward now, as he has put it, what must be done by the government in order to be seen to give a level playing ground to all suspects of treason against the state? Until conviction, of course.
Right. So you caught me off earlier, although we had to go to break, from trying to explain why the president should have very close to him advisor on law and legality and constitutionality. And you said that it might be a duplication of duty. Let me clarify. The office of the Attorney General is clearly defined in the Constitution to institute, to take over, and to discontinue, aside from advising the government on the interrelationship between the federal government and the state government. The office of the State House Counsel is to advise the presidency on official communication, executive act, executive order, and all of the actions of the president. Then there is the role of the advisor to the president on legal and constitutional matter, which is to look at his interests vis-a-vis his function. Attorney General is an apolitical position. He can take a case or position against his party and against another party. But the advisor to the president on law and development is that which advises the president to the base of the interest of the president. Now, let me also caution Gimba, the people, the board players in this matter. The rules of professional conduct is very clear. I have seen lately, everyone involved in Showore's case is all over the media, delving into the substance of the case, prejudging the case, condemning even the bail condition given by the judge. I practice law. Any case that I'm executing in court, I do not appear in the media to speak on the matter. The only reason I'm discussing this matter tonight, and even then not on the merit of the matter, is because I am not involved in the case. The rule of professional conduct prohibits a lawyer who is undertaking the case in the court, and while the matter is pending, to go to the media and begin to prejudice the mind of the public discussing the matter. So my advice to the parties involved is to be very careful about the rules of professional conduct, say they do not violate ethical matter. As a human rights lawyer, if you are not involved in the matter in court, you can do all that you need to do as a human rights lawyer.
We're out of time, actually. Daniel Bwala, a lawyer, I most sincerely apologize as well as thank you for coming on the show to discuss and analyze these issues very in-depthly. Many thanks indeed, as well as Mr. Amakri, the chairman of the Young Progressives Party, the YPP. Many thanks indeed for talking to us on State of the Nation. And to you for being part of the show, many thanks indeed. I am Gimba Umar. This is State of the Nation. Bye for now.